Okay, it is 6 p.m. We will call the Chippewa County Board meeting to order for April 20th of 2021. Okay, can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? A moment of silence.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And roll call.
I show one supervisor absent, Supervisor Hull.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Go to approval of the agenda. Ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Okay, Supervisor Mickelson, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, gotta find my little Supervisor Schmidt, seconded. Any further discussion on the agenda? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye, and then Supervisor Hunt, I will ask you then at the end also. So those present here, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Supervisor Hunt?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Unanimous motion. Motion approved is passed. Members of the public wishing to be heard. I think I've heard of one person who wants, there's two people who want to speak. Okay,
Patricia Popple. Yes.
okay,
And Carolyn Kaiser.
okay. Ms. Popple, you have 5 minutes starting now.
Okay, thank you. I'm Patricia Popple, and I'm from the city of Chippewa Falls. I will specifically address the agenda item, Resolution 1821, the resolution to create the ad hoc committee on Chippewa County groundwater quality. First, I'm really happy to know that an ad hoc committee will be appointed to study the issues specifically related to groundwater. Earlier discussions show that nitrates would be the topic of this study. But in looking over the information as printed on the agenda, it appears that the study group will focus on groundwater quality. Thank goodness. Obviously, the nitrate issue is of great importance. However, frac sand mining and the issues related to reclamation can't be avoided. Almost a year ago, a letter written by Roberta Walls, the DNR non-metallic mining expert, indicated that many issues associated with arsenic and a plethora of other heavy metals found in mining pits, wastewater, and stormwater ponds containing toxic chemicals that could leach into wells and the aquifer if appropriate measures were not taken or are not taken in the reclamation process. This information presents itself as profoundly serious to the people living near frac sand mines and other facilities. A special report entitled, How Safe is Our Drinking Water? Was printed in the Consumer Reports magazine.
Toby Lemieux
Has left the meeting. It was printed in the Consumer Reports magazine for May 2021. It gives a nationwide report and the results, including an article on how to test and treat one's own water. PFAS, arsenic, lead are noted as examples of water contaminants. Heavy metals, toxins, and other hazardous materials, including heavy levels of nitrate entering groundwater intended for drinking, require research strategies and controls. I do take issue with the representatives recommended for work on the committee. As discussed in the executive committee, there are equity issues which might cloud some of the relevant issues related to groundwater. It is important to include female and or minority representation on this committee.
Toby Lemieux
Has joined the meeting. which might cloud some of the relevant issues related to groundwater. It's important to include female and/or minority representation on this committee to provide information, for example, about the roles they take in raising a family or being responsible in the home for accomplishing all the tasks they do for creating a happy, healthy, and safe family environment. Because there are health-related issues, someone with expertise in those issues should be appointed. The agronomist possesses expertise in soil and agricultural practices and strong influence that could be used to the advantage of the county as he teaches others about their situation. In addition, expertise can be garnered from the DNR. I'm not sure if you're aware, but submission of information regarding high nitrates in the state and the changes recommended for implementation in NR 151 were shared just this past week on the website. Comments came from the farming industry as well as many consumers. There is a vast quantity of materials listed on the DNR website, and it would be important that the ad hoc committee utilize that resource for information. Enhancement of the committee by adding appropriate representatives from health, state, minority, and county officials should be considered critical if the $50,000 study is to be successful. With that, best wishes to you on your deliberations regarding the context of this resolution. I will be providing a copy of these comments to the clerk so they can be included in the minutes of this meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Carolyn Kaiser.
Good evening. I'm Carolyn Kaiser from the town of Wheaton, and tonight I will focus my comments into regard to Resolution 18-21 to create the ad hoc committee to study groundwater quality. This issue has been requested by citizens for some time, as the groundwater is the principal water supply for rural residents.
Has
also
left the meeting.
For industries and municipalities in our county. With the next steps, we need to have people with knowledge, skills, and education. That's critical. And it is the citizen hope that transparency will be a priority. In the current form of the resolution, I have numerous questions that have come to my mind and I hope can be answered. We have to have 3 people from the executive board on the committee. It gives citizens pause and then wonder, if that, why not just use the e-board as a core group? Also, the question of diversification and knowledge, what thought was given into that? Minutes from April 6th, 2021 reflect that one farmer on the county board. So that leads to the question, how does one define a farmer? Some of you may remember the process to hire the agronomist, the discussion of hiring an LTE versus a permanent employee to build relationships with landowners. September 7th, 2018, a resolution was passed to hire the agronomist by a vote of 14-1. Do we utilize this person that has the knowledge of soil? Healthcare and science is complex. Where is the representative from the Health and Human Services? UW-Stevens Point has a great deal of history in working in Chippewa County in the groundwater situation. I'm hoping that the committee is expecting them to be involved. The resolution also speaks to coming back to the county board in March of 2022. In all due respect, 11 months is too long. Quality water and air is truly the lifeblood of humans. As a taxpayer, I believe in working for a quality product, using taxpayer money wisely, and involving stakeholders. I ask that you amend the resolution to meet the county's needs and the county's residents' life. Thank you for the opportunity.
Are there any members of the public on that wish to speak? If so, could you identify yourself now and so that? Hearing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. I seek a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I will call the vote, and we'll do voice vote, and then I will call on Supervisor Hunt at the end. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Supervisor Hunt?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, passes unanimously. Reports. We will move to County Administrator review and update of COVID-19.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. So this is my COVID-19 update. The first slide we'll talk about is the courthouse. As you know, we've been reopened for a while now. Some staff still are rotating in and out of the departments with the concern to make sure we have enough staff to provide the service to the public that is necessary. I have on here that ADRC and public health are available by appointment only. Public health is opening up on Monday, so they will be available for walk-ins. And the ADRC, I talked to Tim, they're trying to do a statewide opening. Obviously a very vulnerable population, so they're being really cautious, but they are working on a plan or communicating quite a bit with the state on what that looks like, but at this time it's still only be by appointment only. Of course, we're evaluating existing policies to develop a plan for our new normal. We did tweak some of the stuff that we had, protocols we just put out Monday again, to tweak that a little bit. Again, we're trying to be obviously very cautious, but as things lighten up, hopefully we back to a little bit of normalness for everybody. And we're collaborating obviously with public health. There's a representative that's called the Network of Public Health Law, which is an organization that helps public health. That's looking at criteria for when emergency orders go away. Every county's talking about this, so we're trying to come up with objective criteria to do that. And public health currently has, if you go out on their website, they have 3 separate areas with 11 different metrics in there. So we're looking at that, but also the vaccine's got to play a role in there somehow. So everybody's kind of struggling with it. As you can imagine, it's a tough conversation to have sometimes, but we are trying to work through that. And of course, the other big news is the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, the $1.9 trillion economic stimulus package. Chippewa County is eligible, just the county, for $12.5 million. And if you see the bullet points below that, that's what the areas you can spend it in, that's in the bill. But everybody's waiting for that last bullet point, which is the Treasury interpretation of what the bill says. So we're not exactly sure what that's going to look like. We do have till 2024, December 31st of 2024, to spend the money. So everybody was in a big rush, obviously, to try and figure this all out. But the key is that if we spend it on something that's not eligible, you have to pay it back. And we can't afford to do that. So we're going to be very cautious about where we spend the money and very deliberate on the recommendation we're bringing to the board, obviously, to make sure we're eligible for that. My vision right now is really to bring it forward as kind of a CIP, kind of the same concept. You guys will bring something for your to look over and see if that's where you want to spend the money, and then we can spread that out over the 3 years. So that's the idea right now. Again, everybody's still waiting for the treasurer. We're hearing in 2 weeks it's going to come out, but I've been hearing that since the bill came out. So I don't know when it's actually going to happen. The next page, we always want to keep track of where our funding is, what funding we've used, what funding is available. This is the funding for 2020. As you can see, and I've reported a few times already, we utilized those funds. The next slide is for 2021. You can see where we are with that. That's year to date when this came out, so it's probably 3 weeks old now. There are other funds still available. That $12.6 million that's coming to the county does not include money going directly to public health for the pandemic. So there is additional money there. There's money available for cities, villages across the whole county. So again, everybody's waiting. Infrastructure is always, obviously the big conversation of can we spend it on infrastructure or not? They're saying broadband for sure we can spend it on. So everybody's, kind of looking at that as an expenditure moving forward. And then the next one, the sales tax, we put that on there. Obviously, we were very concerned when the year started. You can see kind of the ups and downs over the months, but we ended up to the green or on there for about 2%. So we'll see how that continues to fluctuate throughout the next year, I'm sure. So that's my update, unless there's any questions.
On your 2020 area there, what is the ones that are not used 100% passed forward, or are they returned, or what happens to the part that's not spent?
Yeah, that's a good question. Do you know that answer?
Yeah, no, we couldn't use those monies. We didn't have enough COVID tracing or whatever in order to utilize those funds.
So they go back to the state?
Yeah, we just didn't get them. It just stays at the state because we only get the money once we spend the money from the state. For this other new money, we're going to get it up front and then we got to spend it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So this is a little different. The stimulus that's coming out, the 12.6, we get half of the money up front. And that's the hard part, is because you don't apply for it. Like, you don't say, this is what I want to spend it on. They're like, okay, it qualifies. You spend it and you have to justify your expenditure. Of course, people are going to get audited through this process. So we definitely want to make sure we're spending on the right amount of money. So that is a good point. That is a little different. A year and a day, supposedly, from when we get our first half of the payment, we're supposed to get our second. And then we have till 2024, December 31st, to spend it all. That's a good question. Yeah, so we didn't actually receive that money. It was allocated, and then if we had the expenditures, we got the money. Good question.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay, we will move on to department reports. And Laurie with the financial update.
All right, got to put my eyes on so I can see. Okay, I can't see it there. Hard being old. Sorry, guys. So I just wanted to give you guys an update. This is for the 2020 pre-audited financial statements. So what happened is we actually closed the books here in late March, and it's a pre-audited. The auditors looked at it. The auditors will come in late May, and they'll review everything, and then they'll come to you, bring you what their findings are and stuff to the board here in August or September. Okay, so here we start. We're going to be on page 13 in that of the packet. All right, so we're starting out with the general county. You can see they had a loss there of that 81. That was just the loss reflects the net year-end transfers. The insurances, that $462,000, that gain reflects the year-end transfer of $600,000 to the employee health account for potential self-health insurance funding. The treasurer, that was $127,000 loss. That is really due to the 2020 interest income because it was significantly lower than 2018 and 2019. Comparing this 2019 to 2020, we had almost a $500,000 difference. So it's a huge difference for us. The next one is the Register of Deeds. We actually had a profit there of a positive variance of $139,000. That is, if you know, with the housing market, it was huge, so that helped us get extra revenues. The Sheriff's Department shows a loss. The reason that is, in their operations account, everything was fine. They were actually up over almost $66,000. In their equipment account, that's in there is for like the radio tower project and other projects. So unfortunately, it kind of gets mingled in there. So that's really what it's about, is from the equipment account. Land conservation and forest management is my next one down there. That one, actually, it was because of that reduced stumpage revenue. And also, we used about $50,000 from the recycling budget for a CIP for recycling containers. That was approved. The last one is public health for $182,000. if you recall, most of that account is set up of tax levy. And because all their efforts went over to the COVID world, they didn't get that others program. So all that money ended up coming back to the general fund because they didn't utilize them for those programs because they didn't have enough staff. Any questions about that area?
Supervisor Thornton?
The tower project in the sheriff's budget, is it in the sheriff's budget under a separate account?
Yes, it is. It's actually, they have a sheriff's equipment account that is all by itself. So like we have the jail chiller in there. They have when they buy their vests, everything like that.
So the tower project is included in that?
That is correct.
Because the tower project's coming in well.
Right. Yes, but you got to understand, I'm comparing 2020 revenue to 2020 expenses. So all of our expenses are occurring in 2020, and we're using fund balance to pay for a lot of that project.
Why are we using fund balance to pay for that project when it was bonded?
Well, because we could only use the bonding money that we had actually got. We could only use it from the time that we had got the bonding money to that 2-year cycle. And anything before, we've been putting year-end dollars in since, I want to say it was 2014 was the year we started.
Been quite a while.
So we've been just keeping on, like, I don't want to say funding that account, but that's how we've been funding it, is through that as much as we could. And we tried to use as much bonding for that 2 years that we could, but all that other expenditures before had to come through there.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions? All right, want to go to the next one? So the next slide was the bar charts, if you were interested. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's the last.
If you wish to remove your mask when you speak, you can.
Oh, sorry.
A little easier for people
Sure.
to hear. Thank you.
All right, here. So if all of the funds, all the lapsing accounts would have closed to the general fund without any changes, those lapsing accounts would have increased the general fund unassigned fund balance by $1,189,432 for an estimated 36%. But to stay in compliance with the fund balance policy adopted back in March of 2019, the total transfers of $1,149,038 occurred. So, and you can see they're spelled out right there where the money came from. So the first little section would have been from the general fund accounts that we had for the non-lapsing accounts. And down at the bottom are for the different funds. Any questions there? All right, with the transfers from the fund balance policy and the closing of that general fund lapsing accounts, before any transfer outs from the county administrator, we would have increased our fund balance, unassigned fund balance, by $2,338,471. And we would have ended up with about a 39.2% for an estimated percentage. Instead, the county administrator is utilizing $1.5 million for future projects or funds that were short. So as you can see, you know, I'm sure every year you guys remember this, we have that $150,000 that we try to help fund the capital projects for the parks. Last year, Department of Human Services actually had a loss of $250,000, well, just about $250,000. So what we did is we transferred $250,000 of year-end closing to help offset that because we can't have a negative fund. Then we also put in $500,000 for a potential future business park in the land development fund. And also, if you recall on the previous slide, I had talked about the self-funded health insurance potential to go in there. So we added another $600,000. And previous years we've added, the last 2 years, I think we've added a little bit too. So once we make all those transfers back out, so we made all those transfers in, we took all those transfers out of the 1.5, our net would be approximately $838,471 that would have been added to the unassigned fund balance. So right now, if the auditors don't find anything to for entries, we would have about a $12,366,000 unassigned fund balance. So when you get that report in from the auditors. And we would expect that we're going to get right around a 35%. That is a guesstimate on my side because the auditors have their special way of coming up with that number. I've tried to get that from them. They don't share that. So Melissa and I always just try to do our best guess that we could. So if you recall, for that percentage, usually the auditors, they recommend that we have between a 30 and 40. So we'd be kind of smack dab in the middle. Any questions there? All right. Okay. And here, I'm sorry, I thought I was ahead of myself. Here's where the bar charts are. All right, the next one is the special revenue funds. The first one is the public health. I don't have that one highlighted, but I did want to talk about that one. We actually had a total positive variance of $323,000. So if you look way over on the right-hand column, we actually normally had a $303,975 positive number. But with the transfer out to the general fund, because of the fund balance policy, we ended up transferring out $216,058, and our net variance then was $107,917. So right now, the 204 fund, which is for public health, has a fund balance at the policy limit of $200,000. Human services is the next one that's down there. So we just talked about this one. Before we had this transfer, because that 2,000 number includes our transfer. Before we had that transfer, we actually had a negative variance in DHS for $247,887. But we transferred in $250,000 so that we could add $2,113 to our fund balance. So right now, as it sits, our fund balance in the 208 is actually $46,295. So it's not a lot. And the bottom one is the sales tax. Remember, Randy had already indicated that we were up 2.03% for 2020 for the sales tax revenues. This was great because it was anticipated that the sales taxes were going to actually take a loss due to COVID, but luckily it didn't happen. Also, just a reminder that includes, we also had a transfer of $2,354,113. Remember that money came from the highway department back in November by a resolution by you guys to deal with the whole bonding issue. At the end of the year, the sales tax fund actually has a balance of $10,879,000. Any questions on special revenue?
I would have one. Is there a possible way to track sales tax as far as like category where it's coming from? Do we have that ability?
We don't.
Okay.
We just get it right from the state. We get a lump sum number and we don't get any more information than that. They just put it into our account. They don't give us any other information.
Okay.
We just have to go off of their honesty.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, and there again is the bar chart for the special revenue area. All right, here is the debt service. This will only show the actual payments that we make each year for debt service, which was for 2020. Except there was, we cleaned out the Fund 313 because we don't have any more payments. That bond has been paid off, but we have a fund balance in there of $614,000. So actually, Randy and I talked about it, and what we did is we transferred it out of the 313 fund and put it into the 316 fund. Hopefully in the future, if we ever needed that to help pay for a payment, that will help us to offset future payments. And as you can see down at the bottom, you can see at the end of 2020, we actually owed $10,160,000 for our outstanding debt. And that includes the $3 million that we bonded for back in September. Any questions on debt service? Okay. Now we're on to capital projects. So this will actually show where, so when we're going and bonding the money, we actually go and put where we put the expenses for the projects that are part of the bonding. This is where that's sitting. So the 415 fund was for that bonding that we took care of last year. So that's where we got $5 million was transferred out. And then the 416 fund is actually that's the bonding money that we have gotten in 2020 that we bonded for in September. Okay. Internal service funds. The one that I would probably talk about the most, I mean, I know you guys hear about all the time, is the workers' comp fund, workers' comp insurance. You can see it shows actually a zero there. The total positive variance was actually $718,870, but with the transfer out to the general fund, because of the fund balance policy, it actually came back out to zero. So the 12/31/2020 fund balance is $1 million as of the policy limit. Any questions on these internal service funds? Okay. And the next is we're going to be on the enterprise and trust agency funds. And the only thing that I would like to explain is the land development fund. You can see that it shows that we had a positive of $715,273. Actually, we had the positive variance of $215,273, and then we did that transfer at the end of the year of $500,000 for a potential future business park. So we ended up with the net positive variance of the $715,273. Any questions? All right, so the next 3 slides are just definitions. I know they've been in the packet forever. Does anybody have questions about them? All right. Anything else anybody can think of?
No questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll have Dan Masterpole give the land conservation annual report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to start before I go through the slides to let the board know that 2020 was a pretty challenging year for all of us, but I can report that it was a good year for land conservation and forest management. We accomplished all of our goals and objectives with minimum disruption, and I credit the committee for staying to their policy agenda. We worked hard on policy all year, and also credit the staff. They worked exceptionally hard under unique circumstances, and to DOA for providing the resources that we needed to stay on track. So I've got about 20 slides that I'd like to move through here. Thank you, Tracy. And it's which button? Left and right. So we try to present an annual report to the board every year of our activities. Our mission is to encourage stewardship for sustainability, to support a quality environment and a productive economy. We provide the services that allow people to make the conservation choices that benefit us all. The report structure, we've got a hard copy report that's in your inbox down in the mailroom, and also have this posted online. This is a PowerPoint overview. The report itself provides an overview of services, accomplishments by divisions. Importantly, it shows maps and figures, which shows where we work and what we're accomplishing. And then there's also a section on fiscal management and finances. So what are the current challenges that we face? And it's appropriate to think about this, recognizing that Thursday is Earth Day. There's a global trend toward climate change that will have direct impacts on the growing season here, weather events, and the land and water resource base where we live. Global demand for food, fiber, and energy have placed a greater demand on our local working farms and forests. Ongoing consumption of manufactured products naturally depletes finite resources, expends energy, and generates solid hazardous waste. And ongoing demographic and recreational trends have placed greater demands on our public land base. This is our org chart. We're organized in 3 divisions. The green is the County Forest and Trails Division, blue is recycling, and the balance is land and water conservation. We get direct support from DOA by way of a finance division assigned staff person. And we work as a team and share resources and make extensive use of outside service contracts. So now I'm going to run through a few slides for each division. Under the Land and Water Division, we implemented the County Land and Water Resource Management Plan that was developed 2 years ago and adopted by the board in 2019. We took select initiatives, tried to get some bounce out of that policy planning, and actually advanced a number of pretty unique project initiatives that bore some fruit. That plan was developed with input by the public and ag stakeholder advisory committee that advised the board. Our voluntary initiatives on the land and water conservation side are we administer county-wide a CREP program. It stands for Conservation Reserve Enhancement, to put in buffers along streams and wetlands. And then we augment that with a targeted watershed project that consumes about 3/4 of the eastern half of the county for the land that drains into Lake Wissota. Conservation practices are used to reduce pollution runoff, increase groundwater recharge and flood storage, and increase biodiversity and wildlife. On the regulatory side, we implement the state's ag performance standards. The state set minimum expectations on all farms, and these apply to both cropping systems and livestock operations. And because we really can't work with everyone at once, we use a priority farm approach where we work with livestock producers who are expanding their operations, and then we respond also to public complaints. Importantly, in 2020, the committee put considerable time and policy effort into revising our ag ordinance. And this hasn't been updated since 1985. And they're in the process of wrapping that work up. And I'm anticipating that some decisions will be made on that in the next couple months. We also administered the county's non-metallic mine reclamation ordinance that applies to both sand and gravel and industrial sand operations. We have a very robust sand and gravel industry here that provides aggregate for infrastructure and our roads. And as you know, we've had a strong industrial sand industry over the last 10 years. Importantly, in 2020, we established and applied some standardized methods and criteria to start to try to quantify what successful reclamation is. It's our quality control piece. And we're revising our non-metallic mine ordinance now, and hopefully we'll get this to you within the next couple months. Importantly, we worked with municipalities and planning and zoning in the Chippewa Falls urban area and administered the Chippewa Falls urban area stormwater program under state WPDS permit. And under that program, we do stormwater facility plan reviews. We periodically inspect the stormwater facilities that are in place in the area. We work with the municipalities and highway to inspect the ditch lines for illicit discharges that might be contaminating stormwater. And we have an educational outreach program. Over the years, the board has invested strongly in groundwater. We have a very solid groundwater testing program that has a number of different facets. We try to match the new well permits to well locations, which provides a real solid geologic understanding of what's going on. And we also have some groundwater sampling that's happening on an ongoing basis. Several years ago, we installed remote sensing equipment throughout the county. I think 9 locations, generally at town halls, to measure groundwater elevations through time. We were especially pleased in 2020 to advance some of the policy work that the committee put together to try to accelerate ag education and environmental education. We did some pilot work with the school districts, and we instituted a new agreement with Beaver Creek Reserve to reach out more to the lake districts and associations. I'm going to switch gears now and cover the Forest and Trails Division. We had major turnover in this division last year, and I'm pleased to report that we're fully staffed up and we're able to maintain full production. The county forest is managed as a public asset by way of a business enterprise for multiple objectives, including timber production, public recreation, and environmental values. The committee worked with our new county forest administrator, Matt Hansen, and his team to complete the planning process and update of the county forest plan. This happens every 15 years. The plan provides policy guidance on county forest management and includes the basis for annual work plans that are implemented through time to achieve the objectives of the county forest plan. When we manage the county forest, it's managed in timber management units. And in 2020, we administered 13 active timber sales, generating about $400,000 worth of revenue. It was down a little bit due to some market fluctuations associated with the pandemic. But we ramped up our planning and put out bids for 21 new timber sales that'll be bid this year and next. We reinvested in the county infrastructure. We work with highway on forest road maintenance. We completed a dam restructuring on the Birch Creek flowage and marketed 2 forest sales from some tax deed land that's maintained by the county. We provided technical support to both motorized and non-motorized trail users. We have a very sophisticated motorized and non-motorized trail network. In 2020, we improved and rebuilt a significant portion of the motorized ATV trail network, about 7.5 miles, working with the ATV Council. We opened up on frozen ground the Ruby Trail game loop and worked with the Snowmobile Association, administering about a $215,000 grant, restructured and rebuilt some snowmobile bridges, and entered a new agreement with the ATV Council for maintenance of the trail network. We also work with non-motorized trail users, specifically the Hickory Ridge Ski and Hiking Group, Ice Age Trail, and Horse Trail folks. They have very well organized volunteer and user organizations that really do the lion's share of the trail maintenance. We also administer on behalf of DNR the state Old Abe Trail, which is a bike trail that extends from Chippewa up to Cornell. And we had record trail passes as people tried to get out and recreate. Wrapping things up here with our last division, our recycling division. Renee Yonk is our senior coordinator. She's been with us for many years and has a very, very well-organized and rounded program. Under the program, we provide technical and administrative and regulatory services to 28 of the 31 municipalities in the county. We distribute state funds and file reports. We provide information and education outreach and enforce our county recycling ordinance. The city and town role in this partnership is to contract the haulers who actually do the curbside and household recycling collection. So this just is a close-up map that shows the different individual municipalities that are working together and with the county. And again, their role is to arrange curbside recycling pickup. This is generally done in incorporated areas, and then to arrange rural drop-off centers, generally at town halls. In 2020, we continued to do a service contract for the city of Chippewa Falls. We administer, Renee administers the Chippewa Falls recycling program. This year was the last year of a pilot project that we had worked with them on to actually try to market some of the household recyclables that were generated. And for several years, the city was fortunate to get some revenue sharing back from those sales. But with some changes in the recycling international markets, that local recycling market collapsed, and the city decided not to continue on. We work with the municipalities and the public to do targeted collections for ag and household hazardous waste, appliances and electronics, tires and ditch cleanup. Things are happening right now on that, right? Every spring and fall, we work with Rusty at the fairgrounds and bring in approximately 800 cars in a 4-hour period for recycling drop-off. It's the one time that I hear from people that say thank you and thank the county board. They really appreciate that. We also work with the municipalities to do a ditch cleanup every year, and that's also a very popular program. We reimburse the towns for mustering their road crews to go pick up the ditches and the tires before summer. One thing that we advanced this year, it was a capital improvement project in recycling. The board approved an expenditure that resulted in the purchase of 92 recycling containers that were distributed to the schools and to the municipal parks so people can recycle away from home. Last slide here. We get about 2% of the county levy. Our expenditures go to staff, about half for staff and contracted services. We distribute another 25% in grants to municipalities and generally return about 20% of our budget back to the general fund, generally from fees and from forest revenues. On the revenue side, levy accounts for 20%, forest revenues about 40%, in the outside grants. So with that, I can entertain any questions, Mr. Chair.
Any questions from Supervisor Thornton?
Under your Forest and Trails Division report, you have a note in here that you expanded frozen ground motorized access to the Tealy Creek Loop. Is this the first year you've done that?
Yes. On frozen ground conditions. Historically, the Tealy Creek Game Loop was a walking, hiking, for hunting trail. And as the committee worked through the revision to the county forest plan, there was a policy question as to whether or not that trail could facilitate frozen ground condition by motorized vehicles. And in this year, upon adoption of the plan, I think it was in March, we were able to open that up for a very short period.
Is there still a snowmobile trail, to your knowledge, is there still a snowmobile trail that crosses that loop or uses part of it?
I think there's a snowmobile trail that may intercept it on the north end. But I'd have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, there was. As far as you know, that hasn't changed.
As far as I know, it hasn't changed.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, go to general reports. I want to recognize one of our past county board members, Lee Mackwam, who recently passed away. When I came back to Chippewa County in 1988, through the years, I worked closely with the Chippewa County Board. Dave Raley, Senior Corporate Counsel, a lot of those folks, a lot of the ordinance changes I was involved with as a representative from the Department of Natural Resources. I met Lee Mackwam way back when he started on it and had the opportunity to provide information for many of the committee meetings. And one of the things that struck me with Mr. Mackwam that I'll never forget is his one-liners. He had the ability to take a tense situation in a meeting and just melt that tension away with his one-liners. And I'll give you an example of one when we were talking about data and statistics that I was presenting on hunting and its safety factor compared to other things in the outdoors. And the statistic I provided was that you were several hundred times more likely to die from a bee sting than you were from a hunting accident in our county forest. Without missing a beat, Lee spikes up and he says, "What are we going to do about those darn bees?" The people started laughing, and it broke the tension of a serious situation as far as the issue we were talking about. He had the ability to do that, and I saw him do that several times. I know I'm going to miss Mr. Mackwam, and I want to take this moment to memorialize him and basically say I'm really, really sorry for his passing, and my sympathies go out to the family and to the other people in this county government and across this county of Chippewa Falls who knew him. Thank you. Now, as I try to flip through. Okay. Mr. Schultz, I believe we have a resolution here. Resolution to authorize acceptance of the Community Development Block Grant Award.
Resolution number 15-21, resolution to authorize acceptance of the Community Development Block Grant Award for grant funding to establish a microenterprise business grant program and to authorize an agreement with the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission to administer the microenterprise grant program on behalf of Chippewa County. Now therefore be it resolved that the Chippewa County Board does hereby authorize the County Board Chair and the County Clerk to sign the acceptance of the award on behalf of Chippewa County to accept the CDBG CV award of $576,300 to be used to develop a microenterprise grant program for businesses in the West Central Wisconsin region, inclusive of Barron, Chippewa, Clark, Dunn, Eau Claire, but not the city of Eau Claire, Polk, and St. Croix counties. And be it further resolved that the attached administrative services agreement between Chippewa County as lead county of the region and the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission is hereby approved, and the County Board Chair and the County Clerk are authorized to sign said agreement on behalf of Chippewa County. And be it further resolved that the County Board Chair and the County Clerk are authorized to sign all other documents necessary to secure the CDBG CV grant of $576,300, including signing the grant agreement with the State of Wisconsin Department of Administration and Chippewa County, as well as any other documents necessary to implement the microenterprise grant program, forwarded to the County Board by the Economic Development Committee.
Okay.
Yep. Got a motion.
Okay. Do we have a motion to pass Resolution 1521?
I'll make the motion that we pass resolution 1521.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Identify who it is. Were you first, Tom? Okay. Tom Thornton for the second.
I'm going to go, Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Just real quick, brief history before I introduce Lynn Nelson from Regional Planning. This is in conjunction with a resolution you passed on February 9th, 2021, Resolution 0821, which approved the filing of an application for this grant. Lynn, I believe you're on the line. You can take it from here.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Lynn Nelson. I'm the Executive Director of the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, and I'm here tonight with Toby Lemahue. And Toby is the person from our staff who is going to be administering this program. So I thought she could take a few minutes to walk you through what the steps are that we're anticipating for this program and what it's going to look like. And then both her and I are available for any additional questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. And can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I just want to make sure that I'm in here. So as Randy said, Chippewa County was able to pass that resolution back in February, and the grant was submitted to the Department of Administration in February also, and ultimately will provide $5,000 grants to reimburse eligible businesses for losses or expenses related to the COVID-19 pandemic. So Chippewa County was recently notified of their award, which will provide up to $510,000 to be used for those business grants, and up to $66,300 for both the grant administration and the implementation of the program with the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. Just want to make a couple of notes about the program and talk to you about our eligibility and timeline, just in case there's any questions. I just wanted to make a note too, that the Micro Enterprise Grant Program is not a new idea. There are many jurisdictions and communities throughout the nation who do use and have used community development block grants in this same way to establish micro enterprise grant programs. So that being said, there are some federal and state guidance and rules that we have to abide by in order to successfully run this program. So that being said, we've taken all of that input and that guidance, and we've established our program. The businesses that will be eligible to potentially receive the $5,000 grant have to be small. They have to be defined as 5 or fewer employees, also which includes the owner or owners. And all employees, regardless of their full-time or part-time status, are included in the employee count. So that's one thing that we'll have to ensure when people are looking to apply. They also have to be located in those counties listed, excluding the city of Eau Claire. They will have to be established prior to February 5th of 2020, and that is the date of the first confirmed COVID-19 case in Wisconsin. Only one grant will be allowed per family, and only one grant will be allowed per business. The business owner must be current on income and property taxes. And then a really big criteria here is that the owners have to be made up of persons that are considered low or moderate income. So at least 51% of the owners have to meet these eligibility criteria, and it is based on family size. So we have a fairly large chart by county and by family size that folks will have to look and see what income they meet. And just as an example, a business owner in Chippewa County that would have a family of 4 people, they would need to have a family income of less than $64,000 in order to obtain this grant. And then another couple of just eligibility criteria here. Again, it has to be the use of those grant funds have to be used for COVID-19 sort of working capital needs. So those sorts of examples could be payroll, rent, mortgage, payments, utilities, maybe inventory replenishment, professional fees, costs related to protective equipment. Those sorts of things would all be eligible uses of the funds. The applicants will need to provide documentation of those costs, and they will be reimbursed by the grant funds. Ineligible businesses include agricultural businesses, lessors of real estate, and nonprofits. And just to quickly talk about the timeline, we're hoping to start program marketing on May 1st, and we want to do a full month of marketing so as to allow a fair and equitable distribution of the program materials and give everyone a fair chance to apply. So we're going to roll that up on May 1 and allow everybody a full month. We'll start taking applications then on June 1st, and we'll accept applications from the 1st to the 15th, through the 15th, and those will be accepted on a first-come, first-served basis. And I forgot to tell you all the marketing efforts that we're going to do, so let me just talk about that for the month of May. I'm going to be setting up a meeting with all of the EDC directors in that 7-county region to talk about the program and disseminate the application and materials. And we'll also be asking those EDC directors to disseminate the information to their respective networks. And many of them have online newsletters or email lists that they also have great connections with and also update their networks on periodically. So we're hoping that they will be able to do that. We will also be distributing the program materials to our other economic development partners in the region, the Small Business Development Center at UW Eau Claire and UW River Falls, Western Dairyland, Red Letter Grant, Momentum West, Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, Workforce Board. Communities sometimes have economic development corporations, the Chambers of Commerce's. We also have a newsletter mailing list that we'll both have at the Regional Planning Commission and with the Regional Business Fund, which is a nonprofit that we administer as well. We'll utilize Facebook and LinkedIn. We have a press release that we're working on that we'll distribute to a media list throughout the region. We also will have a targeted email campaign to distribute program materials, which will include county board members throughout the region, in addition to a lot of other people. So then when those applications are coming in June 1st, we will be accepting them again on a first-come, first-served basis. And then in late June, we will be reviewing those applications for completeness and determining awards. We are going to take that through the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission's Executive Committee. The West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission's Executive Committee has 7 people, one member from each of the 7 counties that are represented with this award. And then we expect the reimbursement request to the state to occur in July, and then the award announcement to our grant recipients will be by the middle of August. I also want to note, if that whole process doesn't expend all of the grant monies that are available to us, the $510,000, we will entertain a second round of, marketing, application acceptance period, the review, all of those steps to hopefully fully expend the money then later in 2021. So I think with that, Chair, I'm done with my remarks, but we'll take any questions that you or others might have, and Lynn is here as well.
Any questions from the board on the block grant? Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Then at this time, we will take the vote.
Just going to do this. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, making sure we're all ready here. Anyway, those who are in favor signify by saying aye, and then we will go to Supervisor Hunt. All those in favor that are here, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Supervisor Hunt?
Aye.
Okay. Ayes have it, passes unanimously. Okay, Resolution 1620 to declare May 9th through the 15th as Economic Development Week. Clerk?
Resolution 16-21, resolution to declare May 9th through the 15th
Toby Lemahue
has left the meeting.
as Chippewa County Economic Development Week. Now therefore be it resolved that the Chippewa County Board of Supervisors does hereby declare May 9th through the 15th, 2021 as Chippewa County Local Economic Development Week. Declare that Chippewa County, Wisconsin is welcoming and supportive of local entrepreneurship. Declare that Chippewa County, Wisconsin supports the activities and efforts of the Chippewa County Economic Development Corporation and recognizes its 29 years of service to the citizens of Chippewa County. Commend all Chippewa County elected officials, staff, and economic development organizations for their hard work and dedication in assisting and building our local economy. Remind citizens of the importance of the economic development profession in advancing career opportunities and improving the quality of life of Chippewa County. Proclaim that it shall be a goal to grow the economy of Chippewa County by developing the local workforce, partnering with local business organizations, and by capitalizing on investment opportunities that strengthen Chippewa County communities. Be it further resolved that the county clerk is directed to transmit a certified copy of this resolution to the Chippewa County Economic Development Corporation, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Mr. Schultz.
Has left the meeting.
Okay. We will put the motion on the floor. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion's been made to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Good.
Thanks, Chair. As I said at the executive committee, I've really found it enjoyable working with economic development. It was something new to me. Again, I've said it in the past that it's not the methodical moving forward of government. It's kind of chaotic, but it's extremely rewarding. Charlie Walker will say a few words, Charlie, right? I want to say a few words for Charlie, or on behalf of Charlie. Him and his team do an outstanding job. They really bring in business. He is very busy. And he does a great job. He's fun to work with. So, Charlie, if you have a few words to say, go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you so much for the opportunity to tell you we're doing a great job on behalf of all the citizens of Chippewa County, and we appreciate the support. Looking forward to Marketing Economic Development Week. May 11th is starting off with our hatch at the Country Fest, and May 12th an open house at Chippewa Valley Innovation Center, and some social media and some marketing, and we're open for business, and thank you for everything that you do.
Okay, thank you. Any more, Mr. Schultz?
No.
Oh, okay. Then we will call the vote. Those in favor of Resolution 1621, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same side. Supervisor Hunt?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, passes unanimously. Resolution 1721.
Has left the meeting.
Resolution number 17-21, resolution designating temporary no parking zones in the town of Arthur. Now therefore be it resolved by the Chippewa County Board of Supervisors that the following roadways, including all of the public right-of-ways adjacent thereto, shall be deemed temporary no parking zones for the period from June 22nd, 2021 through July 19th, 2021, to at County Trunk Highway S from the intersection of County Trunk Highway K, thence east 2.5 miles, town of Arthur, Chippewa County, Wisconsin. Both sides of County Highway K, 1/2 mile north and south of the intersection with County Highway S, town of Arthur, Chippewa County, Wisconsin. Be it further resolved that the temporary no parking restrictions shall be applicable for all 24 hours of each day for all of the above described roadways. And be it further resolved that should the COVID-19 pandemic require further rescheduling of Country Fest and or Rock Fest, the Highway Department is authorized to establish the above no parking zones for the dates in 2021 that will accommodate the rescheduling as necessary to ensure the safety of all involved. And be it further resolved that the Highway Commissioner shall be responsible to erect all official traffic signs consistent with this resolution as required to comply with local and state laws. Forwarded to the County Board by the Legal and Law Enforcement Committee.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
Each motion been made by Supervisor Sikorsky to approve and by Ken Schmidt, Supervisor, to second. Any further discussion?
Obviously, you guys are used to seeing this every year. Unfortunately, last year it wasn't here because of the pandemic, and we had to put in some language this year in case things need to be changed, but routine resolution that's done every year, typically.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we will call the vote. Oh, Carrie, Supervisor.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I think it was brought up in legal and law. Somebody had a good question. How come we have to do this every year and it can't just be something that's ongoing?
Yeah, I talked about it this year with Corp Council. We'll probably do that next year. Maybe it came from there, but we did talk about that. Something we can probably do in the future.
Okay. Any other supervisors? Question? Okay. Hearing none, we will call the vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Supervisor Hunt?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Resolution 1821, resolution to create an ad hoc committee on Chippewa County groundwater quality.
Resolution number 18-21, resolution to create the ad hoc committee on Chippewa County groundwater quality. Now therefore be it resolved that the county board does hereby create the ad hoc committee on Chippewa County groundwater quality to fulfill the objectives outlined above, and be it further resolved that the following county board supervisors are appointed to serve on the committee. 1, County Board Chair Dean Gullickson. 2, Supervisor Chuck Hull, Planning and Zoning Committee. 3, Supervisor Glenn Sikorsky, Land Conservation and Forest Management Committee. 4, Supervisor Buck Steele, Health and Human Services Board. 5, Supervisor Lee McMiniman, at-large member. And be it further resolved that the county administrator shall serve as the facilitator of the meetings of the committee, including setting the agendas, but will be a non-voting member of the committee. And be it further resolved that $50,000 of contingency funds are hereby allocated to be used by the committee to fulfill its objectives as approved by the county administrator. And be it further resolved that the committee will report to the county board no later than March 8th, 2022, as to the progress made by the committee and any recommendations that the county should take regarding groundwater quality, as well as a full accounting of the use of the contingency funds allocated, forwarded to the county board by the executive committee.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion.
Want to speak on it first?
Yep, go ahead.
Just for some of the county board members that aren't used to ad hoc committees, ad hoc committees are typically formed by the county board chair for a purpose. It's to look at a particular subject matter normally. They're typically less formal. Sometimes people call them working committees, not that your committees don't work, but they really do spend a lot of time bringing in experts or bringing in staff to look over whatever the subject matter may be at the time. This one really evolved from the Land Conservation Forest Management Committee when they were studying the livestock facility ordinance. The issue became very complicated. We did bring in some outside legal counsel for that. And this, what we really discovered during that process is that it also could indicate that zoning and public health has to be involved in these conversations. There's lots of statutes, lots of NR codes, administration codes that we think need to be looked at throughout this process. That's what the $50,000 is for. Our corp counsel, they don't specialize in environmental law and everything that needs to be included if we're going to look at this as a comprehensive issue across the state or across the county. Across the state, there's many counties that are starting to look at this. The state has their own committee that is put together to look at groundwater. I know there were several bills passed before COVID hit last year through one of the, I can't remember, the House, must have been the House. Then it's going to the Senate. So a lot of people are looking at this issue currently. The two-thirds vote is required because the money's coming from contingency, and that's required for the $50,000. You have to have a two-thirds vote. It's tied to the whole resolution because the money has to go with the project type. So it's the whole thing. If you keep everything as is, would need a two-thirds vote. That's right.
Any supervisors? Supervisor Thornton.
I have comments, but before that, I would like to ask how we arrived at the 5 people who are serving on this committee.
Got a frog here, but we'll. It was determined by the different committees that were involved. And so we were looking for someone to represent Health and Human Services. Supervisor Steele, I believe, had put this on the agenda prior for Health and Human Services and has been actively involved in the particular issue. Supervisor Sikorsky is representing Land Conservation He's a member of the Land Conservation Committee. He's been actively engaged in silviculture for years. A big part of this issue was basically derived from looking at the animal waste ordinance. And so that particular expertise was looked at. Supervisor Howell was brought into the formula because what we are dealing with here, I sat in on one of the webinars, we have multiple state and federal agencies, and we have multiple engineering information coming in. UW-Madison has been working extensively with some experimentation, so we needed somebody who has experience deciphering engineering reports and working through those issues. And Supervisor McMinimum was put on as the at-large person because of his experience in state government. And again, as I mentioned here, we're working with multiple state agencies. And Mr. McMinimum has had that experience with his prior work at doing that. So that's a variable. Again, this is a big issue. This is a big issue statewide. I believe 20 bills were passed in the Assembly on water in 2020, and those got put on the shelf, and now the Senate is taking up those 20 bills on water quality. So to say that this is a complex issue is an understatement. And multiple counties, I've been informed by DNR that between 16 and 19 other counties have formed similar committees. I've recently been handed some referendums that came from Portage and Wood counties on the same issue. This issue is like wildfire in the state of Wisconsin right now. So that's the rationale for the picking. I'll make note, every county board supervisor was considered. Every county board supervisor was considered. It was not an easy task.
In looking at the makeup of an ad hoc committee, generally ad hoc committees have on them people who specialize in certain things. And you are correct, this is a huge issue. It's a very important issue. And I'm sure it's especially important to those of us on this board who have a well, that they live off of a well. We all know how important this issue is. But yet, we have 5 county board supervisors on this committee. You know, you needn't look no further than this little booklet that we get to see how many special committees there are, many of which have no county board supervisors on them. Some have 1, some have 2. But there's no one on this committee. You have a county board, as an example, you have a county board supervisor who's practically an expert in water, who is licensed by the DNR in well installation, water treatment facilities, both municipal and private. No consideration was given to that individual. We have no one from the Division of Department of Land Conservation on this committee. All we have is board supervisors. And I'm sorry, what are you going to spend $50,000 on? So based on my comments, I would like to make a motion to amend this resolution, or to table this resolution to the July 13th meeting, regular county board meeting, send it back to, I'm assuming it came from the exec committee?
That's correct.
Send it back to the executive committee for reevaluation.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. I'm going to ask the clerk to read back the motion.
I want to.
Motion's been made and
Go
seconded.
back just to exec, and then it would go through.
It would be to referred back to executive committee, and then there should be some specific direction in terms of what the executive committee is supposed to do when it's referred back.
I don't want to tell them what to do. What I'm saying is I think it needs to be reviewed by the committee.
Reviewed by the
This is
committee.
the proper structure for this ad hoc committee.
The structure. To review the structure.
Yes.
Do you want recommendations?
As far as the structure, is that what you're talking about, Supervisor Shipman?
Yes, I hear that it's going back to the executive committee for review of the structure. But are you also looking for recommendations from the executive committee? Because that is not, I'm trying to understand how we would address this in the executive committee.
I mean, like I said, I certainly don't want to tie your hands,
Right.
the executive committee's hands. To me, there's no one from the DNR listed on this thing. There's nobody from land conservation. There's nobody from public health, the people that are actually responsible for doing much of the testing in Chippewa County that you're going to review.
If I might fill in.
I don't want to tell you how to restructure your committee. I just don't think it needs to be comprised of 5 county boards.
Okay. To fill in the blanks, the Department of Natural Resources is providing us with a person for this committee. They will be a non-voting member, but they will be advisory. So that is part of the structure. And again, the person that you had indicated about the experience was considered very much.
Chair, we got a motion, I don't know.
Okay.
Do you have
So we have a motion and we have a second?
Yes, I gave the
Second.
Supervisor Shipman second.
Thank you.
So we must deal with that motion then at this time. Further discussion, Mr. Schmidt.
If this passes, might it be practical for county board supervisors to either contact the clerk, or DOA, with things that they would like to see tweaked or changed or thoughts on this committee, so that it gives the executive committee some direction as to what direction to go?
Can you?
I would recommend you say it now, say it in open session, and we can take notes and we can bring that back to the executive committee. I'd rather have it now if that's possible.
Well, that's fine. But first, I would assume first you'd want to vote to see if, or not.
No, we're discussing the motion.
We're in discussion of the motion.
So you could, whatever recommendations you have, you can definitely talk about.
I've got some thoughts. I'd like to see a couple farmers on this committee from the citizenry of the county, one from the eastern part of the county and one from the western part, to get different geological regions, because a large part of this issue has got to do with farming and nitrates and nitrogen. And it's vastly different depending on what area you're farming in as to how nitrogen acts in the environment. I would also like to see a couple of town board members, perhaps, one of them from a township with a development issue with septic systems and nitrates where it's believed to be coming from the developments. I would like to see the amount of money reduced at this time. I think you're putting the cart ahead of the horse to be worrying about what your regulatory authority is and what enforcement actions to take. This committee doesn't even know what it doesn't know about the issue yet. We've got other threats to the groundwater in the county. We've got a couple wells out in the town of Howard that have detected arsenic now, which is new to the county in my knowledge. It's never been detected before in a well in Chippewa County. There was something else too. And a lot of your objectives here, for instance, identifying areas of poor groundwater and potential causes, steps for landowners to take if they discover their well is contaminated, recommendations for groundwater quality and public education. All those objectives don't require knowledge of what your authority to address this issue in the end is. And you can develop those objectives and then decide where you go from there. A big part of the problem, I'm not going to say a big part of the problem, but I think an issue is, I don't think over probably 25% of the citizens of this county realize what the nitrate issues are. They realize what nitrates are and what they are in a well, but they don't understand the pool of knowledge we have from those tests dating back to the 1980s. And what else we found with our testing the sources of nitrates, for instance, in the last 2016 study. None of this is really widely understood or widely talked about in the public. And I think in order to get the public on board, they need to be aware of this stuff more. And that should be the function of this committee.
Can I address some of those, Chair?
Yes,
okay.
Please.
Yeah, the 50,000 could be used for, I mean, one of the things it could be used for is advertising or education portion. You could pay for radio ads, or you could pay for whatever you want, whatever the committee decides to pay for it. If we don't use the money, it goes back to the contingency fund. So I don't think the dollar amount is a concern, because the committee is made up of county board members and they're very conservative. I don't think they're going to be spending money all over the place. That at some point we are going to need some experts in this field on that side, like you talked about. You said probably not right away, but at some point we're going to have to figure out whose responsibility it is for what. And I don't know any other way to do that besides bringing in some kind of legal counsel or expert from the outside that would know that, because we don't know that.
But you won't need that. I don't believe you're going to need that in this funding cycle.
Well, the funding stays, so it doesn't matter. As long as the committee's attached, the funding stays.
But we can always approve the funding down the road, too.
That's your guys' choice.
Supervisor Ives?
Would you also be working, I believe what UW Stevens Point, because they do a lot of these studies and they had a public hearing, 2 or 3 years ago, and they do it every so often as well?
Yes, actually, that's that same protocol. Land conservation and forestry is our database. Yeah, we will definitely be using that same structure. That's one of the shining stars we have.
I was going to say, too, one thing, I'm just going to give my opinion, it's a little disappointing that you just looked at us all with different things, because I don't think that you know what all of we do. Like, I mean, no offense, but Supervisor Sikorsky had said he was the only farmer on this board, and that's not true. So, and you don't know what some of our other expertise areas are, and it just doesn't look like we should have been able to apply or something, or found out more that we were being considered, to let you know how we could have effectively been on this board for this committee.
We did send an email out to all
But it just said
county board members.
interested.
Right.
And then he said, and then I believe the chair said, we looked at all of us, but it never said anything specific from each committee. We needed somebody that I recall.
Yeah, I don't know what the chair's criteria. He can talk for himself, but I mean, we sent out who was interested and gave those names to the chair, just so you know.
Supervisor Steele?
Yeah, I'd like to say a few words about this process. I think the county board members, their job is to look at the overall system from way up in the air. We're there to look at everything that we should be involved in, and the expertise is going to come. Randy said it before in his presentation, that as different subjects come up, there's going to be an expert in that room. Okay? There better be an expert in that room. And I'm here to tell you, Chippewa County has had the first well survey, I believe in 1985 or 86, when they checked the wells. And they've done it 2 or 3 years since, or 2 or 3 more times since. And the last one was god awful. Actually, I had asked to maybe get an ad hoc committee going, because it's something sacred to me. Before I moved to Chippewa County, I came from an area, a metropolitan area called Flint, Michigan. I don't know if you guys heard about their water. Well, I was there. I grew up there. I was born there. And we've known for 10 years that our water is going downhill as far as quality of water. And we're going to have to do something quick if we can even turn it around. So here we are looking at this, and I don't know if everybody realizes the urgency of this water process, because it's you don't have air and water, you're done. So thank you.
Supervisor Hauser?
First of all, I'm really in favor of an ad hoc committee. I think that's a good idea. Being on the Land and Conservation Committee, I know that we struggled with it. I'm also on the zoning and also on the health. So, definitely in favor of that. I do think that the committee needs to create a better plan as to how they're going to operate, what they're trying to accomplish. It's just a little vague. So I like Supervisor Thornton's idea of sending it back, but also at the same time, you're going to need some money to get it started. So I don't want to jump in on an amendment, but I think if we reduce the amount of money to get a better plan, lay it out, bring it back in July, and move it forward from there, just with more details as to what you want to accomplish, what you're going to spend that $50,000 on. And I do think you'll need $50,000 by that time you're done. So that's an opinion. There's a motion that I don't want to.
Was there a motion on the no? Okay. The supervisor, yeah, yep, no, there is a motion, correct. Supervisor Sikorsky.
I just wanted to comment. I felt that being a farmer, maybe I'm not milking cows anymore, but if you were to bring if we had a retired doctor on the county board, I would assume we would still value his expertise in it. I purchased the farm. I paid for that farm with no outside income. My wife and I successfully operated that farm. I built my own manure storage system, built plenty of buffers, managed my nitrate levels, everything. And that's why I feel that as a, operator of a farm that, like I said, with no outside income, that we successfully paid for that farm and supported a family. By meeting all the rules of the manure management, I felt that I had something to offer to this committee.
Okay. Any other comments?
Supervisor Hunt?
Yes, go ahead, Supervisor Hunt.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. The big concern that I have, and I agree with this new motion that's on the floor to bring it back for further consideration, only because when I look at the makeup of the committee, we have 3 members of the executive committee on that ad hoc committee, which means that we have a quorum because there's only 5 members of the executive committee in total. So does that mean that, I would assume that means that we would always have to have some sort of notice saying that we have a quorum of the executive committee, but we're not going to be talking about executive committee stuff. I'm assuming that's the case. Maybe Mr. Pauls, if you can weigh in on that. That's a big concern for me because we want to just make sure that we're not, making people think that, oh my goodness, are they going to try to, talk about executive committee stuff without the other two members? It just kind of seems, we want to make sure that we're beyond reproach is the only thing. So I don't know if Mr. Pauls can weigh in on that.
Yeah, Supervisor Hunt, understand your concerns there, and yes, the plan would be to, as you know, on our agendas, currently we indicate that there may be unintentionally a quorum of a committee just based on board members attending meetings of other committees. So our plan would be, in this case, since we know that there is a quorum, we would specifically state that and of what committees there is a quorum. And obviously, just as with any committee, that there shouldn't be conversations creating a quorum outside of the meetings.
Does that answer your question, Supervisor Hunt?
I think that's very helpful. I do want to say that
Has joined the meeting.
We really do need to appear beyond reproach, and I don't know if the executive committee is the only committee that there would be a quorum, and it's not unintentional. It's clearly intentional because, again, 3 members of the executive committee are, on this proposed ad hoc committee.
Right.
So again, I just think that we just need to, take a look at it again, just revisit, maybe expand the membership. I'm just kind of spitballing here, but I think that there's a number of things we can do to avoid that. So thank you, Mr. Pauls, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and I would just, if I could, I would just add one more thing that, again, your concern's understandable. It wasn't as much a concern in this case, given that the ad hoc committee is not reporting to another committee. It is reporting to the full board. So it won't be making decisions on its own. It'll be reporting to the full board. So that lessened the quorum issue a little bit.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Supervisor Shipman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank Mr. Thornton for making the motion. I think it's important that we recognize that we did have 2 constituents on the phone too that also noted concerns related to the composition of the committee. And I shared my concerns during the executive committee meeting. They've been restated by others here today, but I just wanted to restate that. Thank you.
Supervisor Thornton.
Just a note in following up what Supervisor Hunt said, we also have 3 members of the Land Conservation and Forest Management Committee on this as presented on this ad hoc committee.
Where?
We have a quorum of that committee also.
Yes, we have.
It's not a quorum, though. There's 6 members. Land Conservation has 6 members.
Any other supervisors? Proper protocol. I'm going to turn the chair spot over to the vice chair, Glenn Sikorsky, for a moment, and then I will comment on this issue and hopefully help clear up some of the misconceptions on it. So at this time, I would turn the floor over to Vice Chair Glenn Sikorsky. Chair, request to speak.
Okay, I can go ahead.
We are at the beginning of a very complex process. I knew there's going to be changes. There's going to be multiple changes as we go through this because of the complexity of the issues and the different groups and organizations that, the medical field, the agronomists, we're going to be utilizing a lot of our county staff in this process to help direct us. And so, in essence, you represent the board, you represent these different committees. In essence, this entire board is actually a major part of this committee. This ad hoc committee reports to you, and there are expertise. By design, I could only pick 5. I would have, if it would have been somebody wanted 7 or whatever. I mean, yes, there's more people that we could have had on. But what I want you to understand is that this committee directly responds back to each and every one of you. Each and every one of you are literally just as much a part of this committee as the committee. Because bottom line is we report to you. And as this goes along, there are people with expertise, and I don't know everybody's resume, okay? But the bottom line is, as we go along, I would encourage that if any of you see an aspect or an issue, to bring it forward to that committee to put it on to be addressed and discussed. So it's always difficult when you start something that's brand new. This is going to be a brand new committee. Yes, we're going to have to learn and move and change and do different things as this whole thing starts to come together. So this is our best attempt at the first shot. Mr. You back.
I can turn the meeting back to the chair.
Well, I think that the vice chair should have the chair until the issue is completely. So until we got to vote on the motion.
Okay, which would be the very next thing.
Okay, so now we're going to vote on the motion.
The amendment first.
Is there any more discussion?
Amendment, okay, I'm sorry. Would you read that again, please?
Sure. The amendment is to refer resolution 18-21 back to the executive committee to review the structure. Correct?
Yep.
Okay. Then I guess we'll call for a vote on the amendment. All in favor, say it.
You want me
Point of
to?
order, this requires a 2/3 vote. Got money in it.
No,
Not the amendment.
Not the amendment.
Yeah, but isn't.
No.
You're just sending it back. The
We're referring it back. That's not a two.
The motion, the motion is to send it to another, back
It's a subsidiary motion, so that's not a motion.
Isn't a roll call vote issue?
No.
Mr. Chair, I would.
You can
Roll call.
request.
I mean, you can do a roll call, but you don't.
Mr. Chair, I would ask for a roll call vote, please.
We'll do a roll call vote then.
Good.
Yep, go ahead.
Supervisor Thornton,
Aye.
Supervisor Hauser,
Aye.
Supervisor Gullickson,
Aye.
Supervisor Michelson,
Aye.
Supervisor Shipman,
Aye.
Supervisor Kervina,
Aye.
Supervisor Eisenhuth,
Aye.
Supervisor Ives,
Aye.
Supervisor Hunt,
Aye.
Supervisor McGill,
Aye.
Supervisor Steele,
Aye.
Supervisor Schmidt,
Aye.
Supervisor McMiniman,
Aye.
Supervisor Sikorsky.
Aye.
That is 14 ayes. Amendment passes.
Now can I turn
Back
The motion.
the regular motion now.
I'm sorry, say that.
The motion to approve.
Oh, okay.
No,
Motion to approve.
we can't.
no, the motion was to move it back to a committee.
So we're done.
The resolution is done.
We just,
Done.
right.
Done.
Well,
That's it.
That's it. That motion supersedes any other motion. 'Cause
Put back.
it's off the table now. Oh, went back.
okay, I see, I get it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
All righty.
So now can I turn the meeting?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
I was like, take it.
Didn't mean to drop this on you. I didn't know that I was going to speak here. Okay, ordinance 121, ordinance to amend Article 2, Section 5831D and 5831D of the County Code of Ordinances.
This is a second reading.
Yep, second reading. So
Brian's.
do you want to read it or?
No, I don't.
Put it on the floor.
Yep, we'll need them.
We made a motion to approve
So move. Second.
and a second. Okay. Any further discussion? Now would be time, Brian.
Okay.
You get the floor.
Okay. Basically, we kind of talked about it last month, I think, but the Traffic Safety Committee looked at this issue back in January, and it was based on a concerned citizen. Dan Masterpole
Has left the meeting.
Traffic coming into Quick Trip there on Highway X. It's an existing 35-mile-an-hour zone. We did an engineering analysis on it, and the recommendation came back to lower that stretch to 25 miles an hour. And so we basically had to fix 2 paragraphs in the ordinance to adjust the 25-mile-an-hour speed zone to add that 0.37 miles, and then lower the amount of highway exits on the 35-mile-an-hour zone. Questions?
Questions? Hearing none, I guess we had a vote. Do I hear a motion to approve? We already did that. Well, we got to approve. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same side. Supervisor Hunt?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Okay, number 6, ordinance 221, to amend sections 5016F and 5021B.
This is the first reading.
First reading.
Larry out there?
Yep, Larry's up.
Come on in. I can hardly hear you.
I know. You're on.
Good evening. So I think the statement of explanation does a pretty good job of explaining what this amendment's all about. The primary purpose of the proposed amendments to clarify parking restrictions at the boat landings within the county parks. And I guess the main reason for it is with the increased traffic we're seeing in the parks, the usage over the last year, we're finding some issues with parking capacities. So again, the amendment change will limit basically folks to park only for a maximum of 24 hours at the boat landing, unless they're actually staying at the county parks. Once in a while, we have to allow some of the county park campground residents to park their trailer in the boat landing park if we run out of space, but that doesn't even happen very often. Secondary item in the amendment is change is to clean up some language with reservations. Basically, the park caretakers do not have access to the online reservation system. So right now, if somebody tries to make an advanced reservation with the park caretakers at the park, it's kind of confusing. It's much cleaner if they call the office or if they go online and do it direct. The whole communication just works much cleaner. We don't double book sites that way. That's what can happen. So it's really just a cleanup lane in the second.
Okay.
We had also discussed paragraph E about the unlicensed motorcycles, that we were going to modify that because, you know, these days we have big touring motorcycles that actually have little campers they tow in and they literally are traveling. And reading that, it actually states that any motorcycle, whether licensed or not, is not allowed. And we had discussed changing that to allow a licensed, you know, street legal motorcycle to access the campground. Because like I said, there's people that travel the country and camp with motorcycles. And I guess I thought that was going to get changed.
I think Attorney Pauls and I actually discussed that further, and it's in review right now, and it will be brought back to the Facilities and Parks Committee with some changes recommended. But it's a little more in depth because there's so many different type of motorized vehicles, whether electric or gas, and it got pretty involved. you probably all know, Attorney Pauls is pretty thorough. And as we got into it, kind of peeling the onion. So it will come back to Facilities and Parks Committee with some recommended changes and then see if they would like to move it back to the board for consideration.
And that's what was talked at the last meeting, was that it would be easier to handle this separately, just because it's kind of a, as he said, there's motor vehicles, there's regular vehicles, you've got motorized bikes, scooters, golf carts, what we may as well tackle all of them and make sure that it's thorough in terms of consistency and what's a vehicle, what's an unlicensed vehicle, what's allowed, what's not. So it wasn't as simple as just, correcting that one little inconsistency that we can see in there now. That we needed to look at it from a more comprehensive look. So, but I'm working.
Yes.
We're working on it.
Okay.
Any other board members? Questions? Okay, since it's the first reading, there won't be a vote on it, so. Do you have any more to say, Larry?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Move on to item number 9, agenda items for future consideration. If you do come up with one, make sure you get a hold of me and get that set in. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay.
I don't know who was the.
Dave Eisen, did you make the motion?
Dave did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Made the motion and Supervisor Schmidt made the second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Supervisor Hunt?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.
Has left the meeting.